I am telling the story of the best friend's brother. I am 37 and I have stumbled into a forbidden flame I never meant to kindle. My name is Isla and I am a landscape designer with a habit of measuring the world in colors and quiet corners. My life feels stable, almost too stable, the kind of steady routine that makes you forget what your heart knows in the middle of the night. My husband and I built a life in the suburbs, a small house with a creaking porch, a dog who barks at the mailman, and a calendar full of birthdays and bills. I am content, yes, but content can turn brittle when grief sits on your chest like a stone you cannot shift. 2 years earlier, I lost my sister, the one who kept me honest and light, and since then, I have learned how to move around the ache. Then came Jenna, my best friend since college, who invited me for a weekend in the old town where her brother Marcus still keeps his easy smile, even after the divorce that left him lighter and more dangerous in a way that rings like a warning bell in my mind. The invitation felt like a lifeline, sewn from familiar warmth. The plan was simple: a few hours by the river, a long dinner, and a reminder that friendship can stretch to include new tenderness without breaking bones. The house where we stayed hums with memories of family visits, of laughter and petty arguments over who forgot to water the herbs on the kitchen windowsill. Marcus is older than me by almost a decade, the type of man who wears a leather watch and a calm voice that asks for patience instead of hurry. When he laughed at a joke I told about a failed client presentation, the sound settled in my belly the way rain lands on hot pavement and makes the air smell of rain and earth. He had moved out of the city after the divorce like a wave retreating to open shore, and he carried a scent of citrus and old books, the kind that makes you lean closer without thinking. We shared a stairwell joke on the last night, and an accident happened in the kitchen, an elbow brushing against a sleeve as he handed me a glass of water, a touch that lingered in the air between us longer than it should have. The moment was nothing and everything. A spark that sparked a chain reaction in the quiet corners of my life that I had promised never to ignore. The unspoken rule between best friends and their siblings is this: you do not quarrel or betray. Yet I found myself pressing my back against the counter while his gaze traced a map from my jaw to the hollow of my throat, reading the same hunger that flickers in the eyes of someone who has learned to live with loss. The words we whispered afterward were careful, civil, almost clinical, but the electricity between us grew heavier with each breath. The inciting incident arrived in a slow avalanche on Saturday morning when the river mist hung over the buildings and Marcus offered to drive me to a spot where the old oaks spread their arms and pretend the world is smaller than it is. We rode in his car with the engine purring, and the way his fingers grazed the top of mine as he passed me the music softened the air between us into a kind of music we both knew by heart. If this confession has you on the edge of your seat, hit like and share, because you will not believe what happens next. I wanted to turn away, to retreat to the safe path carved by my husband and my friends, but the ache in my chest was a map I could no longer ignore. The setting sun spilled honey across the river as we talked about missed chances, about how grief can make a person feel unmoored, about how healing sometimes arrives as a person who sees you without your armor. Marcus spoke softly about his ex-wife, about the kids he loved from afar, now that their lives were busy with school plays and bike rides and a future he could not hold on to. And I listened with an ear tuned to every pause between his sentences. He talked of mornings when the light came through the curtains at just our boundary lines blurred with a tenderness that was not merely physical but emotional. The sense that someone finally understood the shadows in my heart and did not fear them. In my journal, I wrote a line that surprised me with its clarity. Grief is not a door you close, but a window you learn to peek through with someone who sees your reflection without judgment. The days that followed felt dangerous and delicious, like stepping onto a balcony during a storm. Knowing the wind could blow you away, yet choosing to stay because the air tastes of possibility. We walked the creaky sidewalks of the old town, our conversation veering toward childhood songs and the color of the sky after rain. We talked about loyalty, about the code of friendships that binds us even when the heart wants to break the rules. There were moments when I imagined telling Jenna the truth, imagining the look in her eyes, imagining the weight of her disappointment, and I trembled with the fear of losing everything that was built on years of shared jokes and quiet trust. And then there was a door, one that opened to a quiet house, a kitchen filled with the scent of rosemary and coffee, and a whisper that spoke of possibilities that had once seemed foolish to even dream. For a while, I believed that perhaps love could arrive as a second chance rather than as a betrayal, that healing did not require sacrifice of what I had already built, but an expansion of it, a careful bending of the rules to fit the new map of my life. The days grew warmer, and the ache softened into a hopeful ache, the kind that trembles when you are about to decide to do something you fear you cannot undo. And in that moment, I realized that Marcus was not a storm to weather, but a compass to follow. A man who did not demand a place at the center of my universe, but who asked me to open the door a little wider so the light could fall across the walls of my heart in new colors. The decision to pursue what we could be felt like stepping over a line I had drawn years ago when I promised myself that happiness plus responsibility equals safety. And yet happiness arrived wearing his laughter and patience, the ease of his touch, the way he listened when I spoke of the little losses that had accumulated over time, the way his presence steadied my breath. The weekends with Marcus become a ritual. He signs up for the pottery class I always wanted to try. I pick a trail nearby where the wildflowers bloom in the late light, and we let the future drift in like the quiet tide. It is not about escaping a marriage or running from responsibility, but about discovering that a second chance at love can arrive when you are willing to face the truth you hide in the corner of your heart. The best friend remains a vital map in my life, and I hope one day she will understand why I chose to walk toward this doorway rather than away from it. Why I let a long-buried longing become a present that deserves a voice. The night we finally spoke of what this could become, we stood on the balcony and watched the city lights blink alive, and I whispered to him that I was ready to write a new chapter with him, not at the expense of the life I already cherished, but as a confirmation that love can arrive in a different shape and still leave me whole. The future feels uncertain, yes, but that is the point of a true story. Is it not only when courage meets vulnerability does a tale become worth telling? And I am ready to tell it, one careful step at a time, with the knowledge that I have found not only a dangerous attraction, but a shelter from my grief, and a promise of healing that makes me believe in second chances again, a belief I will carry into every tomorrow, with both gratitude and awe. Emotional storytelling, forbidden love, second chances, mature romance, infidelity in marriage, love after loss, grief and healing, tenant love story, romantic narration, YouTube romance, healing through love, slow burn romance, older woman, younger man, heartfelt story, true feelings, emotional connection, faceless love, Olivia and Marcus, narrative romance, love found me.